Howdy do.
How are you?
We're here in the Star City of the South, ready to unravel some more mysteries of Roanoke's history.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Abby.
And we're the Star City Sleuths.
On August 30th, 1918, Mrs. Foster, manager of the Hotel Roanoke, saw four men in suit and tie walk up to the front lobby doors. She quickly told Ed Brown, head waiter, that there would be four unannounced special visitors for lunch that day.
The bellhops on the porch of the hotel were surprised by the caravan of five shiny cars and trucks parked out front of the corner of Jefferson and Shenandoah.
The men were seated and served lunch with the southern hospitality that Roanoke's known for. These surprising lunch guests were Henry Ford, founder and inventor of Ford Motor Companies;
Thomas Edison, the inventor of such wonders as the phonograph, the movie camera, and the long-lasting light bulb;
Harvey Firestone, founder of Firestone Tires and Rubber Company;
and John Burroughs, a well-known naturalist and writer.
How did these amazing men end up in Roanoke together?
A camping trip, of course.
Actually, a glamping trip. This is the story of four friends who just happen to be famous, influential men of the 20th century who find themselves in our history books.
And they visited and dined right here at the Hotel Roanoke.
Back in 1891, Henry Ford got a job at Edison Illuminating Company. He had always looked up to the famous Thomas Edison.
And one day in 1897, Ford was lucky enough to attend a speech by Edison.
After the speech, Ford mustered up the courage to walk up to his hero and show him some sketches of the gasoline-powered engine he was working on.
He was a little nervous to show Mr. Electricity his plans for the gas-powered engine.
After all of his engineer friends had told him that the future of engines were all electrical, but he explored it anyway. And to his surprise and delight,
Edison loved the idea and he said go for it. And go for it he did.
Well, the two inventors became fast friends. And one day in December of 1912, Ford read an article by John Burroughs, a well-known naturalist.
He wrote that the invention of the noisy, smelly automobile was ruining America's appreciation of nature. He called it a demon on wheels.
Well, what did Henry Ford do? He was a fan of Burroughs' writings, so he sent him a fan letter and with it a brand new Model T. Burroughs was a 75-year-old man and had never driven a car before, but he couldn't resist.
He ran it into his locust tree and his fence. Then he ran into his barn, but he practiced and decided he loved that car.
But riding with him was going on a wild ride with Mr. Toad.
By 1914, Henry Ford had a new best bud, John Burroughs.
He decided that he would invite John to go along with them to visit Thomas Edison and his wife at their winter house in Florida. During the trip, the three men decided to take a camping trip to the Everglades.
They had such a great time that they promised that they'd do camp again, and they made a yearly tradition that they do it every single year.
Later in 1915, Thomas Edison was being honored in San Francisco.
Naturally, his biggest fan and best bud, Ford, came along to cheer him on.
And he brought his friend, Harvey Firestone,
the man who supplied him with tires for his car.
While in California, Edison, Ford, and Firestone enjoyed being together and exploring the outdoors.
Since Firestone fit into the group so well, they decided to invite him to join their yearly camping trips. Well, in 1918, the four men decided to go on a 12-day glamping
trip
through North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia.
They call themselves the Vagabonds, which means a person who wanders from place to place without a home or job.
Some people called them hobos, but they were no hobos.
They took a cook, assistants, chauffeurs, a photographer, and lots of food. They drove in 2 brand new Fords and a large Packard, with Thomas Edison in the front car, compass in his hand, navigating the fancy caravan.
The trucks carried each man's 10-foot-long monogram tent,
A 20-foot-long dining tent and 9-foot-long table with a Lazy Susan,
water tanks, stoves.
a refrigerator system, and even lamps. Why not? Thomas Edison was there.
They were definitely not roughing it, but they did enjoy sitting around in a campfire, hunting and fishing, and just being in nature.
Edison cracked jokes.
Ford tried, but his weren't as funny.
Burroughs thought it was funny that they were a group of men bringing all the comforts of home just to seek discomfort.
One time, Ford saw a farmer on the side of the road with a broken down car. He jumped out of his car, rolled his sleeves up, and repaired the car.
The farmer asked him how much he could pay him. Nothing, Ford said. I already have all the money I could want. Well, you can't have that much money if you drive a Ford, said the farmer.
He laughed and liked to tell that tale over and over again.
Well, they were almost done with their trip when they stopped by the town of Roanoke to refuel.
Because the trips were so well known, the people at the Hotel Roanoke were excited to see the Vagabonds here.
After lunch, more people began to gather to catch a glimpse of the generation's most interesting quartet.
While Burroughs and Firestone helped fuel up the vehicles, Edison read the newspaper.
And Ford entertained the crowd. He talked about tractors and water power and road conditions, and always ended with a joke and a smile. When they got ready to load up again and leave Roanoke, Ford said, "You have a wonderful country hereabouts and a wonderful people living in it."
And with that, they drove away.
The Vagabonds kept up the glamping for many years and even invited presidents to join their club after the older Burroughs died.
So that's the story of Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone, John Burroughs, and the day they visited the Magic City. Well, that about wraps up our sleuthing for today. We hope you enjoyed and learned something.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and check us out on Spreadshirt. That's www.starcitysleuths.spreadshirt.com.
And tell all your friends.
And we'll see you next time on
Star